Betrayal doesn't always arrive with a scream. Sometimes, it's just the idle hum of an engine and the smell of jet fuel. I stood on the Austin airport drop-off curb, the July heat sticking to my skin like a second, unwanted layer of clothing. You'd think the most humiliating part of our, congratulations, family trip would be my sister, Rachel, snatching my window seat. You'd be wrong, the most humiliating part was my mother, Linda. She leaned across the passenger seat, her designer sunglasses acting as a perfect reflective shield, preventing me from seeing any flicker of guilt in her eyes. We just couldn't get the big suitcase checked, honey, she said, her voice airy, as if she were discussing the weather. This is just easier. She didn't hand me a boarding pass. She handed me a congrats card with a crisp $100 bill and a one-way bus ticket. My father, Thomas, didn't even look up from the steering wheel. He just shifted the car into drive. The exhaust fumed, the tires chirped against the hot concrete, and just like that, they were gone. That I stood there, a ghost they'd forgotten to bury, clutching a ticket to a destination I didn't choose. The $100 felt less like a lifeline and more like a timer ticking down to my disappearance. I didn't pick a direction, I just picked a bus that was leaving. I learned that day that in a family like mine, love has a weight limit, and I was the baggage they decided to leave behind. The bus dropped me in a part of Austin that smelled of stale beer and fried onions. My new home was a room above the Rusty Nail, a bar where the bass didn't just rattle the walls, it soaked into them, becoming my new, erratic pulse. The $100 was gone within 48 hours, replaced by a grueling 3-job schedule that turned me into a blue-uniformed ghost. From 4 a.m. to noon, I was a barista, steaming milk until it was perfect and smiling at people who looked straight through me. From noon to 5 o'clock, I scrubbed the lives of strangers in hotel rooms, changing sheets that smelled like other people's sleep. But the worst was the third job, bakery dishwasher. From 10:00 p.m. to 2:00 a.m. the air was thick with industrial bleach and old sourdough. My hands were raw, my back a map of screaming nerves. But in that humid, metal-clanging silence, I watched Paul, the head baker. I watched the way he handled dough with the focus of an architect. When the kitchen went dark, I'd pull out my stained notebook. I didn't write about the family that erased me. I drew that I designed cakes with sugar lace so fine it would break if you breathed on it. I sketched impossible flowers made of sponge sugar in a room that smelled of floor cleaner. My hands, scarred by bleach, were learning a new kind of patience. I realized then that while my parents had taken my suitcase, they hadn't taken my hands. And my hands were busy building a world where I finally existed. Momentum doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt, it shows up like a steady rain, finding the same path down a window until there's a groove. My groove was the gilded crumb. It started with Maya's birthday cake, 3 tiers of black currant and hand-painted lace, that she posted with a caption that called me a baking witch. Then came Ethan. He didn't just taste my cardamom sponges, he filmed my hands. He captured the steam, the grit, and the architectural sketches pinned to my flour-dusted walls. He titled it The Baker Who Works in the Dark. Overnight, my phone didn't just buzz, it screamed. 200 orders turned into 1,000. I moved from Paul's scraps to a shared commercial kitchen, sleeping in 4-hour shifts and eating leftover buttercream for dinner. But then, an email landed that made my stomach clench. Subject: brand collaboration opportunity. It was from a woman named Emily, a PR manager at a firm I knew too well. I clicked the link and my blood turned to ice. There she was on the corporate landing page, Emily, the newest addition to my mother's firm. Attached was a glossy PDF for a charity gala, with my sister Rachel's name on the committee. They hadn't called me in 3 years while I scrubbed their toilets and served their coffee in total anonymity. But now that a food blog had made me valuable, I was no longer a ghost. I was an asset. This wasn't an apology, it was an acquisition. They didn't want their daughter back, they wanted to own the success story that I didn't show up humble. I didn't show up as the little lost girl they found. I arrived in a black car that whispered power, wearing a dress that was simple, sharp, and entirely mine. The gala was a sea of forced smiles and expensive masks, but as I stepped into the light, the room shifted. I watched the moment the reflective shields cracked. My mother's glass raised to her lips, then frozen, my father's gaze, finally forced to look at the ghost he'd left on the concrete. The silence was delicious. It was the sound of a narrative shifting in real time, when Linda finally approached, her heels clicking frantically, a sound that used to make me flinch. She wore a face of practiced pride. "Brittany, darling, we've been looking everywhere for you. This partnership with the firm, it's what the family needs." That I looked at her until she let go of my arm. "Funny," I said, my voice steady as a support dowel. "You didn't find me until a food blogger did. I was in this city for 3 years, Linda. I was the girl steaming your milk and scrubbing your hotel floors. You didn't miss a daughter, you missed a talking point." Rachel tried to hiss about me making a scene, but I just smiled. "I remember charity, Rachel. It used to look like $100 and a one-way bus ticket. My work isn't for your brand, and my story is not for sale." That I walked out into the cool night air, the expensive thunk of the car door shutting out their noise forever. Survival isn't an act of hate, it's the courage to prune your own family tree. I didn't go home to them. I went home to the smell of yeast and chocolate, to the people who saw me when I was invisible. I didn't just build a cake. I built a table big enough for the family I actually chose.